Warning. The information in this film is purely conjecture, designed to stimulate your mind and aid in the watching process for all members of the BOC and the rapture of the church. Viewer discretion is advised.
Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at the doors. Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away.
The Jewish people have never exceeded 80 years in Eretz Israel as a sovereign united state. We're now 73 years old. Man, this time, we're not going to let it fall apart. We're not going to let it fall apart. That's why
Naftali Bennett, Hebrew, born 25th March 1972, is an Israeli politician serving as the 13th. 13 is the number of rebellion, and current Prime Minister of Israel since the 13th, June 2021. He served as a Minister of the Diaspora Affairs from 2013 to 2019, as Minister of Education, and as Minister of Defense. He has led the New Right Party since 2018, having previously led the Jewish Home Party between 2012 and 2018. Born and raised in Haifa, the son of the immigrants from the United States, Bennett served in the Sayeret Maktal and Maglan Special Forces units of the Israeli Defense Forces, commanding many combat operations, and subsequently became a software entrepreneur. In 1999, he co-founded and co-owned U.S. company Kauta. The company was sold in 2005 for $145 million, and he also served as CEO of Soluto, an Israeli cloud computing service sold in 2013 for a reported $130 million. Okay, so talking about Naftali Bennett, I first have to make this disclaimer. Please bear with me. My pronunciations of these crazy words, sometimes it's gonna sound like a child. However, if you bear with me, we'll continue on. I've had Naftali Bennett continually kind of being put upon my heart and my mind, and I started to investigate this individual, and I believe he is a absolute suitable candidate for the Antichrist. I'm not saying that he is 100%, but follow along and pray and be a Berean, and at very most, or at the very least, keep this in your mind. Naftali, his name meaning. Immediately right off the bat in Google, it brought up a search result from sheknows.com for babies, the names. The meaning of Naftali is wreath. That's one of the meanings. And a wreath is a type of crown. We also have the Charlie Victor 19, the corona, the crown going on right now. Another meaning for Naftali. It comes from the ancient Hebrew, and it means my struggle or my strife. In Hebrew, in the Old Testament, he is a son of Jacob, right? Jacob becomes Israel by Rachel's servant Bilhah. And we're going to get into that, okay? So keep that in mind. He's the ancestor of one of the 12 tribes. And as in he, I am referring, of course, to Naftali from the Old Testament. And I guess for future reference, to make a distinguishing factor, I'm just going to call the Prime Minister Naftali Bennett just by his last name, Bennett. However, I find it interesting that we have these pictures starting to form, which leads us, because Naftali itself, which is, or Mr. Bennett's first name, actually brings us to this famous, most infamous Antichrist type, a almost declaration, if you will, right, from the beginning, that we had during the birth of the fig tree generation, Adolf Hitler. Now, Adolf Hitler had composed a book, I believe while he was in prison, called Mein Kampf, which is German for my struggle. Ironic and interesting that Mr. Bennett's first name, Naftali, means struggle, or my strife, or struggle. It's very interesting. And what's more interesting about that is we have the Nazi Germany, right? It was the Third Reich. And as you see from this Wikipedia excerpt here, we have it literally stating in the first paragraph that the Third Reich, meaning Third Realm or Third Empire, alluded to the Nazis' conceit that Nazi Germany was the successor to the earlier Holy Roman Empire. And there we have this, the legs of iron, the Roman Empire age, and now the mixing of iron and clay, right? So you have this empire that's never quite actually dissolved. It was never destroyed, right? It may have broken apart, right, into many different nations, Western nations in particular, like the United States of America. But you have the same symbolisms from the eagle, right? The iron eagle, the Roman eagle. You have the Nazi eagle, and you have American symbolism, which is also the eagle. And this is actually very interesting, this tie-in, because it really shows this connection all the way back to the German Antichrist, Adolf Hitler. Going along from this startling realization of the connections we have here with Naftali, we have to examine Mr. Bennett's last name. Okay, so looking at Bennett, okay, we have an excerpt here from sheknows.com again that has name meanings on it. And interestingly enough, the English baby names meaning, as you see here, it says in English baby names, the meaning of the name Bennett is right hand son. That is quite startling. Going down to the Latin, which Latin and Greek are essentially brother and sister languages. They very closely paired, right? And that's why a lot of the original Greeks manuscripts started getting changed into Latin and through the Catholic Church. And you have Latin baby name meaning. In Latin, the baby name, the meaning of the name Bennett is blessed, from benedictus, which, hang on to that word, because as we continue to explore, it gets even more startling. And it has a 6th century Italian saint, Benedict of Nursia, founded the Benedictine order of monks and nuns. So you have this huge tie-in right, with the Catholic Church, which also, as we explored in our series that we're still working on, the Judgment, the Revelation, we have this Catholic Church, the type of the prophetess, right, the whore of Babylon. And we continue on to look at the Bennett meaning. Okay, so we got this from the Oxford University Press is the source, and the Bennett name meaning is English from the medieval personal name Benedict, Latin Benedictus meaning blessed. In the 12th century Latin, and form of the name is found in England alongside versions derived from the Old French. And if we continue to look at the dictionary here in Oxford Languages from a excerpt from Google search, we see that the Benedictus, right, it's a noun for Christian church, but the number 1 is an invocation beginning with that Latin script there, which I'm not going to read, but it says, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," forming a set part of the Mass. And then it goes on to talk about Luke 68 through 69, Luke 1, from "Blessed be the Lord." And I looked this up in the Benedictus from a Wikipedia entry, which all these guys are cited in the description box below. It's apparently also known as the Song of Zechariah. And as I read this, I seen this interesting talk about the Benedictus song, and apparently it has some connection here, right, to Zechariah, John the Baptist. And when I looked up that chapter in Luke to see what they were referring to, this is what I seen.
Blessed is the Lord God of Israel, for he has visited and redeemed his people, and has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he spoke by the mouth of his holy prophets, who have been since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he swore to our father Abraham, to grant us that we, being delivered from the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life.
Okay, guys, I just wanted to go over this. I know a name is just a name, okay? So you can make your arguments there. Hey, this is kind of weird. I understand there's some kind of weird coincidences going on, if you believe in coincidences, which I don't. However, as we continue on, we look at Chabad.org, the Jewish Hebrew calendar date converter, which I also linked into the description. If you look in the description, you will find it. And I encourage you to click it. And look, it could be a good Berean, right? But his birthday was Saturday, March 25th, 1972, Nisan 10, Hebrew year 5732. Nisan 10, guys, was the day the lamb is selected before it is sacrificed, right? The atonement, the lamb. And Jesus actually fulfilled this prophecy. However, you can see it, and this is so interesting because I can see how they are potentially going to set this guy up, right, as this potential candidate, Antichrist, chosen one type person, right, who is this Nisan 10 lamb, so to speak. And if this isn't crazy, it gets even more strange as we continue to dive into his birth place and birth year and date. Just pointing out that the Hebrew year 5732, I looked up in the Strong's, okay, and I thought it was interesting. It was a masculine noun, and it means time of duration in year. Could this be the time, right? The beginning of the end of what we know as the week of Jacob's trouble. Okay, could this guy be the one who is the one, right? The Antichrist, possibly, right? So he was born, as we said earlier, in Haifa. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Maybe it's Haifa. And as you see, I'm going to bring up this Wikipedia excerpt, all linked in the description. It is the third largest city in Israel after Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, with a population of 285,000 and some change. That was in 2019. The city Haifa forms a part of the Haifa metropolitan area in Israel. It is the home, guys, get this, it is the home of the Baha'i Faith, the Baha'i Faith World Center. What? Are you serious? The Baha'i Faith is that world religion, the one world religion that we have all suspected was going to play a part in the end. And this guy is literally born at the headquarters of this place. This cannot get any more strange. But wait, it does get more strange. When we look further into the Wikipedia entries here, we have the etymology. Okay, it says that the ultimate origin of the name Haifa remains unclear. One theory holds it derives from the name of the high priest Caiaphas, right? Isn't that insanity? Caiaphas, he was the one, guys, who ordered the arrest and planned the execution of the Lord Jesus Christ. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, you know? And absolutely, when I was up really late last night researching this, it really blew my mind. I almost couldn't even believe it. You know, he was the one who was over the Sanhedrin. And as we continue on, we will see some even more startling and interesting things that may point to Mr. Naftali Bennett as a candidate for the Antichrist, for all the Watchmen to keep their eyes watching this man.
In our series, World of Worship, we're exploring different ways people practice faith and religion around the globe. Today, we're taking a look at one of the fastest growing religions in the world, the Baha'i Faith. There are now more than 100,000 Baha'i communities worldwide. CBS This Morning's Saturday co-host, there she is, Dana Jacobson. Hey, Dana, recently visited one in Wilmette, Illinois. So the question is, Dana, what's the heart of this religion?
Well, Gail, the one word that we kept hearing to describe the Baha'i Faith was unity. In Arabic, it means follower of glory. It was founded in 1844 in Iran, and the religion teaches the oneness of all world religions with principles that seem universal. If you're intrigued, come on with me now on a journey to the Mother Temple of the West.
Just outside Chicago, on the shores of Lake Michigan,
construction started in 1921.
Sits the oldest surviving Baha'i house of worship.
Every Baha'i temple has 9 sides, 9 doors, 9 gardens, and fountains.
What's the significance of 9?
9 is a symbol of completeness and unity.
Joyce Litoff was attracted to the Baha'i Faith because she says it teaches what she already believes.
My mother was Jewish and my father was Catholic, and then I married a Jewish man, so I've actually lived in 2 religious communities.
Yeah.
And when I learned about the Baha'i Faith that embraces the teachings of other religions, it made total sense to me.
The idea of oneness is carved into the temple's exterior, which includes the Jewish Star of David, the Christian cross, and the Star and Crescent of Islam.
I'm sorry to have made you suffer through that ridiculous Baha'i Faith introduction. However, I think it just really continues to hammer home the point of this sick satanic system that the Antichrist will bring along to try to sway everyone to join him, that everyone can play along. But we know there's only one way, there's only one name given among men by where we must be saved, right? Hallelujah. And that name is Jesus Christ. However, you can see you can see that they're trying extremely hard to get us to sway their way, so to speak. And as we continue on, there is some really interesting things with the Nissan 10. Okay, 2 dates. Nissan 10, I have 2 different accounts that I want to pull up. We have the first Shabbat Haggadah, which is the Great Sabbath, which was celebrated in Israel by the Israelites 5 days before the Exodus. Okay, that's interesting, right? 5 days before the Exodus, Passover, right? And then 10 Nisan, we have Yahrzeit of Miriam the Prophetess. And we actually have a Greek alphabet Omicron tie-in here. Just bear with me and we will continue on. Okay, so we are continuing. I just wanted to bring up from Hebrew for Christians again, we have the Shabbat Haggadah, inspecting the Passover lamb. This is kind of what we were talking about the Nissan 10, right? The origins of Shabbat Haggadah. We have, according to the Talmud, the Exodus from Egypt occurred on Thursday, Nisan 15th. This making the 10th of that month a Shabbat. It was on this great Shabbat that the Lord commanded the families of Israel to obtain a lamb for sacrifice and to bring to their homes. This was to be Korban Pesach, the Passover lamb to be sacrificed on Nisan 14th, which again, we know Jesus has already fulfilled the Passover lamb. But we can kind of already see possibly how they are going to try and convince us otherwise. Okay, so I wanted to pick up with the Yahrzeit, right, in the second half, or the second date mentioned on Nisan 10. And I was reading this, it's from Miriam the Prophetess, and it says, Miriam was a prophetess, as the Torah states clearly. This is from Chabad, by the way, guys. I have it linked in the description. Our sages tell us that the spirit of prophecy came to her when she was still a child. Her earliest prophecy was that her mother was going to give birth to a son who would free the Jewish people from Egyptian bondage. This, guys, is the story of the midwives who would not kill the Jewish boys being born as Pharaoh had commanded, thus bringing us to this little quick video from the last Watchmen update. And it is very important, but there's also more about this. So if we look at Wikipedia and its definition of Omicron, right, the uppercase O, literally, or small o, it's small in contrast to Omega, right, which is also another prophetic type picture that you could see there. However, there's some things I've highlighted that I wanted to really point out of this. The 15th letter, it is the 15th letter of the Greek alphabet. The Greek numerals has it at a value of 70, but it's also the Phoenician letter of Ayin. And I think that may have also perked up your ears, as it did mine when I seen that and read it. I was like, no way. So immediately, I looked at Ayin. Believe it or not, the ancient pictographs in the Hebrew language has the Ayin as a picture of an eyeball. The letter Ayin is the 16th letter of the alphabet, having a numeric value of 70. What is the chance that the Greek and the Hebrew both have the same numerical value of 70? So this really prompted me to continue to look into this, and I looked at the Strong's G70, and I found it amazing because we have the pictograph of the eyeball, or the watching, and the G70, as you see highlighted, means watching, sleeplessness, or watching. I then turned and went to Strong's H70, and we have the wheel, the disc, the potter's wheel, and what really blew my mind was a bearing stool, a midwife's stool. And I was just floored because the two verses that this word was used in was Exodus 1:16 and Jeremiah 18:3. And if you look at both of these stories, the first one in Exodus is about deliverance, right, of an actual child, which reminds me of the birthing of the church, coming out of Egypt And we have Jeremiah. I encourage you to read both chapters, but it is also a prophetic story and picture potentially of the judgments that are coming, right? You have to read those chapters, guys.
Naftali Bennett is a multi-millionaire and former tech entrepreneur. The son of U.S.-born parents, the former Special Forces commando sold his startup for $145 million in 2005 and ventured into politics and the Likud party the following year. He served as Benjamin Netanyahu's chief of staff until 2008. In 2012, Bennett rose to the head of the nationalist Jewish Home Party and has since made no secret of his desire to become the Israeli right's new leading figure. He served as Minister of Defense, Education, and Economy under various Netanyahu governments, despite their strained relations. Heading Yamina, a right-wing alliance, Bennett holds a more liberal stance on gay rights and secularism than some of his former allies on the religious right. He's an advocate of liberalizing the economy, but expanding settlements and annexing much of the West Bank have arguably been the center of his political platform.
I believe I'm the only one, and our party is the only party on this podium that opposes founding a Palestinian state within the land of Israel, between the Jordan and the Mediterranean.
But with his new coalition for change, Naftali Bennett is not expected to implement his political agenda, at least not for the time being.
And what will be the sign of your coming, and of the end of the age? And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet.
That's all, folks.